Hi everyone. In our last lesson we looked at how we can simplify fractions. Today we're going to look at the 4 rules of fractions, and specifically I'm going to show you how to add and subtract fractions. This topic is difficult for a lot of students, and I thought I'll go into it in detail so everyone knows how to add fractions and subtract fractions. So I'm going to start off with one example, and what I want to do is just very quickly go through some of the rules that you have to use when you're adding fraction. Now, rule number 1, you have to make sure when you're adding fraction, the denominator is always the same. And what I mean by this is, suppose I have a fraction like 1 over 2 plus 3 over 5. Here, the denominator is not the same. This number and this number is not the same. So therefore I can't add it together. And what you have to do is make sure that these two numbers are the same. So the denominator has to be the same before adding or subtracting. So how can I go about adding these two fractions then? Well, what I can do is ask myself, what can I multiply the 2 by and the 5 by so that it becomes the same number? And the best way to do this is ask yourself, okay, if I multiply this 2 by 5 and the 5 by 2, would that give me the same number? Well, 5 times 2 is equal to 10, and 2 times 5 is equal to 10. Another trick that people use is you just look at the two numbers at the bottom, so the 2 and the 5, and the 2 you multiply by the 5, and the 5 you multiply by the 2. And that just makes your workout a lot easier. So now that I've multiplied the bottom by 5, I'm going to multiply the top one by 5, because we can't change the bottom and not change the top at the same time. We have to keep it the same. So I'll multiply the bottom and the top. And here at the bottom I'll multiply by 2. So the top one I'm going to multiply by 2. So we end up with 1 times 5, which is equal to 5 over 10 plus 6 over 10. And now you can see that the denominator is the same, and I can go ahead and start writing the answer. And the answer is found by adding the numerators together. So in this case, 5 plus 6, which is equal to 11, and the denominator will stay the same, and it's out of 10. And this is the answer that you're looking for. Now, if you remember in our last lesson, I showed you how you can simplify fractions. So what we should always do is try to see whether we can divide the numerator and the denominator by a number. And if we can't, then we have to change it into mixed number if we have a top-heavy fraction. And we can see that this is a top-heavy fraction because the 11 is larger than the 10. So it's a top-heavy fraction. So let's see if I can simplify it by dividing. And last lesson we saw we should be using the prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, etc. to see whether we can divide the top number and the bottom number. So let's do this quickly. 11 divided by 2 can't be done. Divide by 3 can't be done. Divide by 5 can't be done. Divide by 7 can't be done. So automatically I know that we can't divide. So the next thing I can do is write it into mixed number. And to write it into mixed number, we ask ourselves, how many times does 10 go into 11? I know for a fact 10 goes into 11 only once. So I write a big one. And then I'm going to say, what is the remainder? Well, 10 times 1 is equal to 10. And in order to get to 11, I need one more. So the remainder is 1 out of the original fraction, which is 10. So this is my final answer, 1 and 1/10. Okay, so that was for adding fractions. Now what we can do is use exactly the same rule when we are subtracting fractions. So let's take a look at this example. So I want to add 3, that's example number 2. I want to add 3/4. Sorry, I meant taking away. I want to take away 3/4 minus 2/5. Again, by checking the denominators, I can see that they are different. Hence, I have to make it the same. And in order to make it the same, I'm going to times the 4 by 5 and the 5 by 4. And I'm going to do the same thing to the numerators. So this one I times it by 5. So I have to times it by 5 here. And this one I have to times it by 4 because I times it by 4 at the bottom. So I end up with 3 times 5, which is equal to 15. And 4 times 5, which is equal to 20. Take away 2 times 4, which is equal to 8, over 5 times 4, which is equal to 20. Now you can notice that both my denominators are the same. So I can go ahead and look at the numerators and just take them away from each other. So 15 take away 8 is equal to 7, and the denominator stays the same. Finally, I'm going to do a check and see if we have a top-heavy fraction. And in this case, it's not a top-heavy fraction. And what I should also do is check whether I can divide the 7 and the 20. And if I again refer back to my prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, I can see that the 7 cannot be divided by any numbers apart from 7, but if I divide 20 by 7, it's not going to give me a whole number. Therefore, I can't simplify this fraction anymore, and I'm going to just give this as my final answer. Alright, and one last example where we have to tackle mixed numbers and either add them or subtract them. So I will stick to subtracting, and that will be our example number 3. So I want to subtract 3 1/3, take away 1 3/4. Now, in order to tackle this question, what you need to do is change these mixed numbers, this one and that one, into an improper fraction. So I'm going to show you how to do this on this side. First of all, let's look at the 3 1/3. In order to change it into an improper fraction, I want you to start looking at the bottom number, the 3 here, and I want you to times that by the whole number first. So you times it, and then after that, I want you to add top number 1. So 3 times 3 is equal to 9, and 9 plus 1 is equal to 10. And this fraction is out of 3, so I'm going to write it out of 3. And this is how you change a mixed number into an improper fraction. And we can do the same thing for 1 3/4. So again, I'm going to look at the 4, and I'm going to times this 4 by 1, and then add the 3. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is equal to 7, and the fraction is out of 4, so I'll write it out of 4. So these guys here, that one and that one, I can rewrite them as 10/3 because we saw it here, but we can change it into that. And take away 1 3/4. Well, 1 3/4, we can write it as 7 out of 4. And now that looks like something that we can deal with because it looks exactly the same as what we've done before. So again, the rule of fraction is that the denominator has to be the same. Here they are not the same. So I'm going to multiply the 3 by 4, and I'm going to do the same thing to the numerator. And this 4 here, I'm going to times it by 3. I'm going to multiply the top one by 3. And 10 times 4 gives me 40. 3 times 4 gives me 12. take away 7 times 3, which is 21, and 4 times 3, which is 12 again. And now we can see that we've got both denominators to be the same, and I can now take away the numbers. So 40 take away 21, how much is that equal to? That's equal to, well, 40 take away 20 is equal to 20. So I'm taking one more, so it's equal to 19 over 12. And the final check that we always must do is check whether the top number is larger than the bottom number. And here we've got two options. We can either simplify by dividing the numbers at the top and bottom, and write it as a mixed number. Let's use the prime numbers and see whether we can simplify by dividing. So 19 and 12, can I divide it by 2? Yes, I can. So let's divide this by 2, and that one by 2. So actually we can't. Very sorry, I thought it was 18. So we can't divide by 2. So can we divide it by 3? No. Can we divide it by 5? No. By 7? No. By 11? No. And by 13? No. So instead what we should do is write it as a mixed number. 12, how many times does it go into 19? It goes once. What's the remainder? Well, from 12 to 19, how many do we have? We've got 7 as a remainder, and the fraction is out of 12. And as you can see here, I can't simplify it anymore, so my answer is 1 and 7 out of 12. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you now understand how to add or subtract fractions. And as you can see, it's very easy to make a mistake. Like this one here, I thought it was an 18, and I was going to divide it by 2, but then I found out that actually it can't. So in order to simplify, you can either divide or you can write as a mixed number, which is what we ended up doing here. Okay guys, so I hope that helped, and I'll see you in another video tutorial soon. Bye bye.